Ari, I had an amazing idea in Bracketology around 2 a.m. as I was finishing up that column. Because I was thinking, SMU is having a historic season, and I'm trying to make the most realistic bracket projection I can. So it can't really go by the AP poll because some of these teams are going to play each other, and some things are going to happen where if you put this one team here, then you can't have this other team here. And you and I talked at length on the show about SMU. You told me if you don't think SMU is going to beat Miami in the ACC championship, then you should leave them out because more than likely they're not going to have the quality wins that stack up against the other teams they would be up against for those spots. And I'm like, I get you. I get you. And then I get to the bottom of my bracket last night, and I'm like, I got room for SMU. I did it. Ari, do you want to know how I did it?
Yeah, because I actually woke up this morning and saw some other bracket projections, and I'm seeing a lot of SMU in the 10 and 11 slot, which means that they are projecting a loss to Miami in the ACC championship game. And I don't know how you think that, so fill me in.
I had 2 number 6s. I had Texas and Indiana both at number 6 because I had been moving stuff around while formatting. So I had 2 number 6s and then a number 7 and number 8. And I realized, oh crap. Sorry, ponies. I got to take you back out. So I have SMU as the first of the first 4 out now. And I have Alabama as the last at large. And I have Boise State at number 12. When I thought SMU was possibly the last at large, I was thinking, wait, would Boise State be ranked ahead of them? They might. But when I realized my error, then I had to change it. And that's the thing. Like, this is going to make some people mad, this bracketology stuff. But we are trying to predict what it's going to look like when the committee's done. Not what the committee rankings are going to look like on Tuesday, because on Tuesday, I wouldn't be shocked if SMU is in a spot where that looks like they're going to get an at-large. But you have to imagine that one of SMU or Miami is going to win the ACC championship game. If SMU beats Miami, they're probably the 3 or the 4. Miami might still be in, probably still in at 12-1. But SMU, you're going to say, okay, what's the best win? And then it'll be Louisville and Pittsburgh. And I'm not sure that's going to do it because, like, Alabama, if they're 10-2, is going to go, our best win's Georgia. And if Georgia's sitting there as the SEC champ, that's a pretty good best win.
I thought you were going to give me like a scenario where it actually worked out that way.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. That's what I'm giving you. I'm dumb.
But there's some really smart people who also do this exercise who landed on that. So I'd be very curious I guess unless they think that all the teams that are kind of on the bubble right now are going to clear out, but that's exactly right, Andy. When you're doing this, you have to consider what the committee is actually going to do. And I know that the first rankings are on Tuesday, and I think they might show a projected bracket, but what good is that? That there's no value in that because it's not even mathematically possible to turn out that way. People on my in my feed talking about Bubble Watch and your bracketology are saying that, this can't possibly happen because SMU is ranked ahead. And it's like, guys, this is a projection of what we think it's going to look like. And I would buy if you put SMU in at 3. I would buy if you think they can win the SEC because that's.
And I could have Miami at like 10 or 11, right? That would probably be realistic.
Here, Andy. And you and I landed on, and probably because we talked through it on Saturday night show, but you and I both landed on 4 SEC teams in the playoff, right?
Yes. Yeah, 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten, Notre Dame, 1 Big 12, 1 ACC.
Yeah,
Boise State.
And that angers people. I got a lot of the SEC does not deserve to have 4 teams in, and that might be the case right now. But I feel like Alabama or LSU, whoever wins the game on Saturday, if they're able to win out, they're going to be in. Like thinking about what the committee is going to do might hurt some feelings. People might not think it's just, but I have Alabama in my field.
Is Alabama's best win so Alabama's best win is Georgia, but Alabama has a win at Wisconsin. Isn't that Penn State's best win?
Yeah. And I think that you have to really start to just accept the fact that who you lost to is not as important as who you beat. And I actually don't know if you agree with me on this, but I think that a 10-2 team who has wins over 2 or even 3 playoff opponents or fringe playoff opponents, even bubble teams, that is more impressive to the committee as a resume than going 11-1 and beating nobody. So, like with SMU, to bring it back around at the end of the year, if they do not win the ACC championship game, they are going to be a 2-loss team, and it's not going to be a conference champion, and it's not going to have a really, really great win. We don't know what Pitt's going to turn out to be. We don't know if BYU, the team that they lost,
BYU would have been the good win, but they didn't beat BYU.
Yeah, it's like I almost feel like I would put SMU in if they lost to Nevada but beat BYU. Like, it's almost better if to lose to a really bad team and get the quality win than it is to not lose to really bad teams and not have those quality wins. And it might seem backwards, right? Because like you should probably
Notre Dame's like, yep, that's right.
Because, well, I mean, it's frustrating to people because the committee should be like, oh God, this team lost to NIU. Oh, but they don't. That's not how they think. That's not how they do it. So you can make the case, and I just don't think people understand that SMU would be in a more advantageous spot. Could you imagine if they had a win over the Big 12 champion and had a terrible loss on their team? It would be the same exact scenario, but they would probably be in at the 10 or 11 in my latest projections if that's what their resume was. So, like, that's what it is, and that's the reality of it. And also, too, at the end of the year, like, I think I'm the only person. Oh, me and you are both in agreement that Alabama's in right now. You're not going to see a lot of Alabama in the projections.
One of Alabama or LSU will be in. Like, Alabama may not be in that spot this time next week. It may be LSU. That is essentially me just saying I think Alabama's going to win the game.
That's me too. And that's kind of how we're getting back into. I mean, they're a 4-point favorite on the road, so I don't know if they're going to win or lose, but based on the projection with the information that we have, it seems prudent to pick Alabama to put it in there right now. And if LSU wins, then I'll flip it next week. But like Alabama with a win over Georgia is a highly impressive resume team. And you might think they stink, and maybe they do, but they beat Georgia. And beating Georgia is like give me a comic book reference here, like the elixir of growth or something.
Beating Thanos.
Yeah. I don't know what that means, but yes.
So we say that, but I want to point out another part of my bracket that I'm sure is enraging some people today, or making some people very happy. There's a group that's hated me for a while. There's a group that's hated me for a while that I think I've now maybe overcompensated with, but I don't know if I have. So I made Miami number 2. I have not had Miami in that ACC championship slot for a while. I have had Clemson in there. Obviously, Clemson lost to Louisville. I was considering moving Miami into that spot anyway. Clemson losing to Louisville made that very easy for me. But I didn't put them at 3. I put them at 2 because I am predicting a 13-0 Miami ACC champion. And Georgia, I put them at 3, which means I think they're going to beat Ole Miss this week. But based on what I saw yesterday, I don't know. I don't know how confident I am. And I don't know how confident I am that they're going to look great the rest of the way either. Now, their resume is going to be really good because if they don't lose again, they will have beaten Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and whoever they see in the SEC championship game. So maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe they do need to be 2 or 1. But I saw a lot of red flags yesterday.
Hey, a lot of red flags. Put that graphic back up. The southeast quadrant of that bracket. Georgia, Texas, and Bama. Like, I'm looking at Ohio State, and like Ohio State is better off than Oregon
at 5
for losing the game. Like, honestly, if you're Ohio State, just tank the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, because you still probably see Oregon again if Oregon's number 1, but it'd be in the semis because you
don't put anything on tape.
Yep, Boise State, BYU, and then probably Oregon. Meanwhile, Texas and Alabama would have to play for the right to play Georgia.
Think about how the difference between those two paths is just 1 seed.
Yes. Right. Like, let's say Texas wins out, Ohio State loses to Indiana, Texas winds up losing the SEC championship game. They're probably your 5 seed. And all of a sudden it's like they've got the path. But yeah,
and you're looking down, you're looking up at Indiana.
Is gonna yeah.
It's not just the 5 seed, Andy. Look at the 6 seed and as opposed to the 7.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
There's going to be a lot of lower seeds that have easier paths. Would you rather have the 6 path or the 8 path?
I would rather have the 6 path.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, the 8 path. No, I was looking at 7. I was thinking you were asking me would I rather have the 7 path.
6 has the
so 7
path
in my bracketology is Indiana. They would open with a home game against Tennessee. 8 is Penn State, which would open with a home game against Notre Dame. 6 is Texas, which would open with a home game against Alabama. So no, the 6 is the worst of that, I think. I don't know though. Like, it depends on which Alabama team shows up against Texas. Like, which Alabama team shows up in Austin?
I just wouldn't want to even risk that the 30% chance that the great one shows up.
Yeah,
but here's I don't want to see.
I don't want to see the Irish if I'm Penn State. Like, that's not a team I feel like I match up great against.
You can't duplicate it though. It just happened to turn out this way on your bracket, but there's no seed to avoid. Like, you can't go into the end of the year with a design of how to avoid it.
Well,
but when the final bracket comes out, holy crap, this team got lucky, or this team has the best.
Let's look at the Northeast portion, and I feel like we're talking about the NCAA tournament and the regions. As we're just pointing out the direction it's in. So the upper right hand quadrant of the bracket. I mean, Tennessee could get to the semis.
Yeah.
In that scenario, as the 10 seed.
Yeah.
Not if they play the way they did against Kentucky, but if they played the way they did against Alabama, then it's possible.
Yeah, I'm going to be very curious when we get 5 years of data, if the 5 seed will advance to the semifinals more often than the 1, 2, or 3 seeds.
I think they're going to change it before 2026. They're going to. They have that new contract. They're going to change some things. We've talked about moving it to 14 so that basically the SEC and the Big Ten protect their championship games as viable commercial entities. I think that's what they're going to do. I think that they're probably going to have to change that requirement that you have to be a conference champ to be in the top 4, because it just really
I just think
messes up that whole thing.
Probably just make the tournament 38 teams, and then if that doesn't work, we'll just go to 64.
68.
Hell, why don't we just invite everybody?
We could.
Wouldn't it be great if they had a 112 team tournament and there's only one team that didn't get to go?
I'm sorry. Sorry, Kennesaw State. You're the odd team out.
You're out.
poor Owls. They beat Liberty the other day.
Could you imagine the debates of who got screwed?
I'm so sorry, Al. All right, back to the actual tournament that's going to happen. It looks fun though.
It does look fun.
I would like it. And I did this trying to predict what the results would be. I didn't do it, and this is something I'm going to warn people about with the actual committee too. I didn't seed it with the intent of even thinking about the matchups. I didn't say when I put.
I just go in order.
Yeah, when I put Texas at 6, I wasn't like, who am I putting at 11 that's going to play them? I didn't even think about it.
Nope, didn't even think about it. And that's the way I hope it goes. And the thing I will say too is that like Ohio State Boise would be a very entertaining. Like, you would want to go see Ashton Genty play against that defense. Like, you're getting interesting
and it's
matchups.
One of those that, historically, like, they've always the group of 5 teams have always said, well, what if we got a chance? Well, here's a chance.
Yeah. And it's like kind of like a cool uniform game that you wouldn't otherwise see. So even if it turns out to be a blowout, the semis and the 4-team field are also blowouts. We're going to get plenty of them. And I think that it's possible that we get, plenty of them. The thing that I think is interesting about the 12-team field that we haven't discussed, but is true, is I think the likelihood of blowouts being as common once we get down to 4 after this tournament are probably going to be lower than blowouts occurring in the 4-team field. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does, because the 4-team field, it was a little, you had all this time. Some teams got really healthy. Some teams just didn't necessarily belong with the other teams. You will have had to win at least one and possibly 2 games to get to the semis in this particular case. So yeah, the teams probably will be a little more evenly matched. But guys, let's be real here. There are going to be blowouts and there are going to be close games in all of the early rounds. Like you're going to get both. You're not going to get all of one or all of the other. And that's okay. Like, there are going to be blowouts in 8-9 games that we think should be close, because sometimes that just happens. Like, I'm trying to think. Oh, a few years ago, remember when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl? They played Buffalo in the playoffs, and you're like, oh, guys, they're on the road in Buffalo. That's going to be a tough game. And the Bengals just demolished the Bills. Like, sometimes that happens. So we're going to see that, but I think you're right. I think as you get further along in the process, the teams are going to be fairly evenly matched. Also, there's going to be some law of attrition going on. Teams are just going to play a bunch of games. They're going to be surviving at that point.
Well, here's what this is going to eliminate. In the 4-team field, if BYU went undefeated in the Big 12 and won the Big 12, they would have been in as the 4 seed. And then they would play Oregon. Like, if BYU is actually good enough, they're going to have to beat an Ohio State type team in order to get to the semis before that blowout could occur. So, like, if you're a team that gets advantageous seeding, or a team that people are not quite sure about your strength of schedule, or if you're legit, like in the 4-team field, there was no forum to prove it before you were on the field with a big dog. If you're on the field with a big dog, it could either happen before you get to the Final Four, or if you do get to the Final Four, you would have had to have beaten one already, which means that I think the Final Four is probably going to be more pure in terms of which teams are tested, which teams are playing well, who's hot, all those things. So blowouts are still going to happen if we have teams that are just, head and shoulders better than the other one. But I think it's going to be harder for a team that doesn't belong to sneak in.
Yeah, I do think so. And I think it's going to be fun once we get there, because those games are going to be incredibly intense. But I just, I'm fascinated by this whole process. Tuesday night, we get a window in the committee's thinking. It doesn't mean we know what the bracket's going to look like yet, because all they're doing is ranking based on what they've seen. They're not trying to project out. So that said, I will be curious, Ari, to see if they are looking at good wins the way we think they are, and if they're worrying about who you lost to as little as we think they will, because I think that's going to matter. I think if they set the tone that this matters to us, this doesn't matter as much to us, hopefully we'll be a little more accurate in our predictions here, but we'll find out. Cannot wait for Tuesday, and we will definitely break it all down. Actually, Ari and I will be live on Tuesday as that gets revealed, and we'll try to make sense of it in real time. And trust me, there's other things going on Tuesday, but you might be tired of those other things. You might just want to hang with us. So we're
going to be the Manning cast of the playoff reveal.
Exactly. We'll bring Belichick in. I'm sure he'll have plenty to say.